It's the Orioles on Masson, and Boston is the site, Fenway Park, for the middle game of this three-game set. Orioles suffering the loss last night, shut out by the Red Sox 7-0. Hi, everybody. I'm Gary Thorne, and welcome back to Fenway Park. In the last two ball games against the Red Sox, the Orioles have been outscored 17-1. They need to get the offense going today. There is no longer any room for losing games if the Orioles have any hope of capturing that second wild card spot. They will turn to the pitcher when he's on the mound, who's given them the most wins this season, and that is Wei Chen. It may be his next to last start in an Oriole uniform. Here are the numbers that he has put up as an Oriole in his career, starting back in 2012. The ERA has always been good, none better than this year with a 10-7 mark and a 3.36 ERA. If he leaves the Orioles, will he stay in the American League East? Well, his numbers against Eastern Division opponents: 50 starts, 15-18. ERA a little high for what you'd like to see. So is the opponent batting average. Home runs allowed 42. Many believe if Chen does not sign with the Orioles, he will be out of the division, but still be very good. He has been very good, Mike Bordick, this year.
He has. And you know what I like to see with Wei Chen? His steady improvement. Since the time he's come with the Orioles, he's had to make an adjustment to pitch at the major league level. Of course, here, 5 days rest. When he came from Japan, he was pitching on 6 days rest. So he had to get his body in shape, and he made that recovery. He did, you know, the only time he had a bad year was in 2013 when he had an oblique injury, and that was a little setback for him. He bounced back, and he's shown that gradual improvement, and even against the American League East. This year he's riding a 3.55 earned run average, so he's showing improvement there. He's pitched well against the Red Sox this year, where his earned run average is just up over 2. So I like the fact that he's proven that he can pitch in the East, and he's shown that he can get better and better as the years go by. He's been the most reliable starter for the Orioles this season, and I don't expect him to do anything different his last 2 starts of the year.
They will count on him again today. The Red Sox will take Rodriguez out of the rotation and go with Breslow out of the bullpen to start this ball game. Game 2, Fenway Park, when we come back. Orioles baseball on Masson is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com and by your local Mazda dealers. The famous Swan Boats, the Boston Common. Take a look at our BGE home game time temperature, a cool 62 degrees under sunny skies. BGE Home, Baltimore's home team for heating, cooling, plumbing, and electrical. Why would you call anyone else? Here's the starting lineup for the Orioles, brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. It'll be Raimo, Flaherty, Machado, Davis, Pierce, Wieters, Scope, Parra, and Hardy. Ryan Flaherty this season against Boston, big numbers, so he gets a start, first time in left field this year.
Let's take a look at Craig Breslow's pitch arsenal this season. The fastball 54% of the time, throws it 89 to 92, so not overpowering by any means. Has a slider and a curveball for the breaking ball and a straight change, and he loves to mix up all four pitches. Of course, this is his first start of his career. 522 relief appearances before this start. He's been in 43 games this year with a 4.53 earned run average, 42 punchouts, 21 walks in his 55 2/3 innings of work. The opponent's hitting 291 overall. Righties at 286, lefties up to 300. He is a fly ball pitcher. 63% of his outs are in the air, and he has given up the 10 long balls. He's a smart pitcher. He knows how to mix it up and keep hitters off balance. And if the Orioles offense is going to show they're going to be aggressive, he finds ways to exploit that. So he will work the perimeter with his off-speed offerings.
So anything you have to say about Craig Breslow, you better say it now. Because he's only expected to throw 40 or 50 pitches in the ball game since it is his first major league start. It would have been the former Oriole Walter Rodriguez making the start, but since they're out of it, they did not want to waste innings using him, so they took him out of the rotation, and thus Breslow gets the opportunity. Now, he's faced the Orioles 38 times in relief with a very good ERA of 2.01. He has a record against the Orioles of just 1-0 in those games pitched, which hasn't been many innings. I mean, it's 38 outings, but only 44 2/3 innings pitched. He has never pitched more than 3 2/3 innings in a major league ball game. So he makes the start, and Torey Lovallo, the interim manager, said we'll go between 40 and 50 pitches, and that'll be it.
Yeah, it's going to be a bullpen game for the Red Sox indeed, and Rich Hill helped that cause full strength with the loaded bullpen.
First pitch is going to be foul back. So taking our advice to get at him early is Nolan Reimold. Back in the leadoff spot, he has a 1 for 3 in the ball game last night. He had the leadoff single, and the Orioles did not get another hit until the 9th inning against Hill, who had the complete game. Reimold will take that to left field. It'll stay up, handled by Castillo.
Let's take a look at the Red Sox defense behind Breslow. Castillo, Bradley Jr., and Betts in the Red Sox outfield. Bogarts and Rutledge will be the double play combination up the middle. Holton Shaw on the corners, and Swihart getting the start behind the plate this afternoon.
So the Orioles' hopes for postseason dwindling with every game they lose. They are still just 3.5 games behind the second place wild card spot, but as a result of the games last night, the Cleveland Indians have moved ahead of the Orioles, so there's yet one more team to pass. The Orioles 3.5 out. They've got the Angels, Minnesota, and now Cleveland in front of them to get to Houston, the second place wild card team. Ryan Flaherty in the number 2 spot. Buck Showalter putting him in with those big numbers against the Red Sox. In the air, left field, pretty good wood, back near the wall, and caught. A little wind blowing in that certainly prevented that ball from reaching the wall. Probably would not have been out, but the wind blowing in denied him a hit.
Pretty nice swing, but you see the flag going stiff straight in, so it gets above the green monster, and the wind pushes it back. Easy out for Castillo in left field.
So a couple of outs in a hurry for the 35-year-old left-hander, and that'll bring up Manny Machado. The Orioles are now 22-21 against left-handed starters on the season, with the loss to the lefty Rich Hill in last night's game. There are Manny's numbers, reaching that 30 home run mark, 78 RBIs. He had an 0 for 4 in the ball game last night against Breslow. He's had a couple of hits, 6 at bats, including 1 home run off this left-hander. Breslow's been hit very hard this year, 300 by lefties, 286 by righties. He's given up more hits than innings pitched, 62 hits in 55 innings, and that ERA of 4.53. Those are not, obviously, good numbers. And as a result, he's got an 0-3 record on the year. Machado will take the off-speed pitch, and it will miss outside, maybe a little low, and the count goes to 3-0.
I think there's a little bit of a surprise that Breslow's getting this start because not only the numbers off from Breslow's recent success with the Red Sox, but even the last month and a half he's been in some trouble. 8.36 earned run average since August 4th. But this start here could lower that a little bit.
So that will be the first base runner, and our Maryland Live Casino look at the man coming to the plate.
Yeah, Orioles love the long ball. 65-41 record with a home run, without 11-36. A season with 200 home runs. 1954 to 2011, 5 seasons, but the Orioles have done it the past 4 seasons. That's the longest active streak, and of course they're led by Davis, Machado, and Adam Jones. Chris Davis, 43 home runs this year, and of course after getting another one taken away last night, he could be approaching 50. 5 times he's been robbed of the long ball this season.
We'll show you all those later in the ball game. He's looking for his 200th career long ball home run. That will be fouled and out of play. Breslow broke off the mound. There wasn't anyone remotely close to that with a shift on. And if anyone's going to handle it, it's going to have to be the pitcher. Chris is again tied with Cruz for the lead. They both have 43 home runs. It is, of course, an irony in some ways that the Orioles have had the home run leader in Cruz last year, Davis much of this year, and now the two of them are battling for the home run title this year. And that is a strike. They are not alone, though. Mike Trout's made his move. He's got 40, 3 behind the leaders, and so does Josh Donaldson. So there are 4 legitimate contenders for the American League home run title. Breslow, Manny Machado, pretty good lead over there at first base, being held by Travis Shaw, and that will draw the lob, toss, throw.
Breslow doesn't have a quick move to first base, but he's very effective at controlling the running game because he can hang there for a little bit. If the runner wants to go first move, he has the ability to just step down and throw to first base.
Pitch on the way, and that will be inside. Breslow has not won a ball game since May 7 of 2014. That was his last win. So what the Red Sox would like to be able to do is keep him in long enough to figure in a win situation if they can get some runs. Pitch on the way to Davis, and a swing and a miss. So Breslow in his first career start faces only 4 in the inning, 1 walk, 1 left on. Put both hands over our eyes momentarily. And then here's the starting lineup for the Red Sox. It'll be Betts, Pedroia, and Bogart, Shaw, Castillo, and Holt, Rutledge, Swihart, and Bradley Jr. Xander Bogaerts, 23 straight games he has been on base.
Let's take a look at Wei and Chen's pitch arsenal this season. The fastball 65% of the time. He's been able to command that very well all year long. Breaking ball has a good slider that's becoming a very good pitch for him. He can slow down a curve as well, and the straight change 10% of the time. Wei-Yen's made 29 starts this year, 10 wins for Chen, 3.36 earned run average. That's the lowest of his career since he's been with the Orioles. 143 punchouts, just 36 walks for Chen this season. Opponents hitting 266 overall. Lefties only 224. And Chen, runners get on base 168 with runners in scoring position.
And the first pitch to Mookie Betts will be taken for a strike. Betts with one of the game's great catches ever in that ball game last night to rob Davis of the home run and end the ball game. Pops that one up, wind blowing in. Reimold started back, but that wind's going to affect balls put up in the air, and Betts is retired.
Take a look at the Orioles defense this afternoon. Flaherty getting the start in left field. Reimold once again in center with Jones down. Parr over at right. Hardy and Scope up the middle. Shadow of Pierce on the corners, and Matt Wieters will be doing catching this afternoon.
Buck Showalter saying Adam Jones again is available, but felt sore after getting a little workout in today, and they just don't want to risk it. So Jones continues out of the lineup, missing the ball game. And here is Pedroia. There's Adam. He's available, could play, but they just at this point in time don't want to risk it. Pedroia has huge numbers, and now even bigger against Chen. A 486 lifetime average, 486 against Wei and Chen, and he adds to it right there with a single with one down.
Well, that's probably a big reason why. Using the whole field, hitting the fastball, pulling the hands in tight, just smoking a ground ball past the effort of Jonathan Scope.
So Pedroia is on. He had a hit in the ball game last night, scored on that amazing play at the plate where two base runners scored right back to back. Pedroia and Bogaerts literally on each other's back. And here is Xander Bogaerts. 3 for 4 in the ball game last night. Bogaerts hitting .281 against the Orioles on the year and has driven in 6. Chen's delivery will be taken for a strike.
Take a look at the highest batting average this season. Miguel Cabrera leading the way, but Xander Bogaerts at .325, so impressive, and he's at the top of many offensive categories. Altuve, Brantley, and Cruz on that list, but Bogaerts 188 hits, that's second in the American League. He's hitting .351 here at Fenway Park. That's second for a hitter in their home park. I mean, this guy is the Red Sox MVP this year, I think, hands down. The fact that he plays such good defense. I know Ortiz is having a monster year, as you see Wieters taking one right off the chops.
That one spun the mask all the way around on Bogaerts, trying to barrel that one up. Bogaerts waiting on it. It'll be up high. He's 4 for 16 lifetime against Chen with 1 home run. Against the Red Sox, this is start number 4 this year for the Oriole left-hander. He's 1-1 this year, 6-4 lifetime. Here in this ballpark, 3 wins, 3 losses, and a 4.5 ERA here at Fenway Park. Breaking ball will be taken outside at 77 miles an hour and a 2-2 count.
Yeah, Wei-Yen's thrown really well here recently in his last 2 starts, giving up 3 runs in 14 innings, and a couple played against Kansas City and Tampa. No walks though in those ball games, and we've always talked about Wei and Chen and the great command he's had. It's on a nice little roll.
That's going to go to left field, hit pretty well, and up, and a fine catch made. Ryan Flaherty. Oh, mercy. In his first start in left field this year, and the first time since July of 2012. The very first ball hit to him is a challenge.
I'll tell you, Ryan Flaherty is so impressive. Super utility player. Played right field in the National Series and came down with a great play here. Fenway Park, one of the toughest positions to play, left field against the Green Monster, and he comes down with a gem there. Beautiful second out play by Flaherty.
MVP, most versatile player for the Orioles, right there in left field. Here's Travis Shaw. Shift is on in the infield. Shaw, first baseman, and an 0 for 4 in the ball game last night off the fist. He will foul that one back. On the road this season for Wei and Chen, he has been very good. He is 5-2 on the road. His ERA 3.13 on the road is the 5th lowest road ERA in the American League. He's gone 5-5 at Camden Yards. ERA not much higher, 3.5. And a swing and a miss and a well located.
Well, this is just what you're talking about here, Gary. Lowest earned run average on the road. Take a look at the Jeep inside the numbers. Price, Carrasco, Gray, Archer just ahead of Wei-Yin Chen with that 3.13 earned run average. He's a 5-2 record in 13 road starts this year with 8 quality starts. And this is not just a fluke. He's done this his whole career. 22-16 on the road with a 3.69 in 57 road starts.
So how much money will he make? Only Scott Boras knows. 1 ball, 2 strike count, 2 down. Infield pulled around the other way and hit into that shift. Jonathan Scope will go to first with it and record the out. So no runs on 1 hit, no errors, and 1 left on base. Second game of our 3-game set, scoreless. Player has won 500 for being selected, 500 more for every Orioles home run hit tonight. Play baseball buck scratch offs today. Win up to $50,000 instantly. You can learn more at mdlottery.com/baseball. Many would wonder how I would know how to pronounce that name so instantaneously. Coming up, it'll be Castillo, Holt, and Rutledge.
And how do you know how to pronounce that name?
Would you know if I pronounced it wrong? No is the correct answer. So there you go. Steve Pearce in the ballgame last night had an 0 for 3. He is 2 for 5 lifetime off Breslow. Pitch on the way, and that'll be outside for a ball. Orioles on a 5-3 road trip that'll conclude tomorrow with the 3rd game here at Fenway. Then they head home to wrap up the season. Orioles are 11-6 against the Red Sox on the year. And did that catch Swihart? He went down on that foul ball, and he's going to have to walk this one off.
Yeah, Pierce going down after the low fastball right on the inside of the right knee. Not a lot of padding in there on the hinge part of the shin guard. Going to feel that one for a while.
Plate umpire Greg Gibson had a friendly conversation with Breslow. Pinball, look at that.
Boy, got him in 3 spots, right?
Knee, chest, arm. A lot of points in the bowling alley for that one. 1 ball, 1 strike count on Pierce. Left-hander's pitch to him will be on the outside corner for a strike. It's the left-hander who gives up those big averages to both lefties and righties that the Orioles are trying to get to here. And early in this ball game, they know they're not going to see him for very long, and that's tough. I mean, you really hope you're going to get to see a guy at least twice in your ball game at bat, so you get to see what he's got. That may not happen depending on how many pitches get thrown here if they keep him between 40 and 50, which is what they think they're going to do. 2-2 delivery on the way, and did he go? Yes. First base umpire Carlos Torres, strikeout.
Working Steve Pearce away throughout this at bat. Drops a little slider down the bottom of the zone. Pearce can't hold up on it. Goes down for the first out.
So Pearce is retired. 2 strikeouts in a row for Breslow, and that'll bring up Matt Wieters. That's at an 0 for 5 in the times he has faced Breslow. Did not play in the ball game last night. Orioles switch hitting catcher will take the pitch for a strike. 273 right-handed, 3 home runs. 243 left-handed, 4 home runs. This is game number 70 on the year for Matt. So not even a half a year in games will Matt Wieters have under his belt going into the free agency off season. How that will affect what he gets and where he goes remains to be seen. Set up low and away, which is exactly where the pitch was, and a 1-ball 2-strike count from Breslow.
Yeah, it's been a long year, to say the least, for Matt Wieters as far as recovering from that Tommy John surgery. Back in spring training, worked hard to get right, but just didn't feel good enough coming out of spring. I'll tell you what, there have been glimpses of what we've seen in the past from Matt Wieters. First home run since September 4th, and it was a huge one. A 2-run shot to give the Orioles a lead against the Nationals. A bomb on a 97-mile-an-hour heater straight away to center.
Here in this ballpark, he's had 1 lifetime home run. And Wieters will put that one in the air to center. A lot of room and the wind blowing in. Look how that gets knocked down. And Bradley easily gets underneath it. And there are 2 away. Well, we want to remind you, in the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, you can join in to help Governor Larry Hogan and support the program, as the Orioles have done, with a contribution of $50,000 to encourage you to join in at Orioles.com/charity to make a donation. And when you do, you get 50% off the tickets for the upcoming Blue Jays series. Orioles.com/charity. Jonathan Schoop, 2 down, nobody on. Schoop with an 0 for 3 in the ball game last night. Jonathan will take care of that with a base hit. Now Schoop's on with a 2-out single. So in each of the first 2 innings, the Orioles, with 2 down, have gotten a man on, a walk in the first, and a base hit here.
So a piece of hitting right there from Jonathan Schoop. Breslow missing his spot. Schoop making a pay with a clean single up the middle. You see the consistent mix of his pitches here. 26 pitches thrown, 56% fastballs, but 20% breaking balls, 24% change. That's his game plan. Not too often you see relievers with a 4-pitch mix. Well, Breslow has that.
Here is Parra. Did not play last night. Schoop with a left-hander looking right at him. It'll be foul back. Parra's 1 for 5 off Breslow. Breslow makes his first major league start. He did have 3 starts in the minors, but those 3 starts came in 222 games that he pitched in the minors. The last start he had was with Pawtucket last season, and he was working at AAA in the Boston organization. 0-1 delivery on the way, and that will catch the outside corner for a strike, and it goes to 0-2 from Breslow. Orioles have won 9 of their last 12 against the Red Sox. They've been red hot against them until last night, and then that complete shutdown of the offense ended that streak. Down the line, left field. They were playing him that way, still won't get it. It went by Castillo. Schoop going to third. Cutoff man. No play anywhere, and a double for Parra. And the Orioles have runners at second and third.
Nice piece of hitting right there by Parra, staying on the pitch away, and that ball was smoked down the left field line. 34th double of the season. He gets on this. Castillo tries to cut it down, but too much heat on that ball. Gets by him. Take a look at Jonathan Schoop, secondary lead. Tries to get it going. He sees the ball kick off the wall, and he's got to find that other gear. He does, sliding in safely to third base. Parra behind him in the second.
So a big moment early. The Orioles get a chance on a base hit here to pick up a couple of runs. J.J. Hardy batting in the 9 spot. He is 0 for 9 against Breslow. First ball goes to second base on the big hop. Rutledge will make the play, and that's it. No runs, 2 hits, no errors. 2 are left in scoring position. It remains zip-zip. The Toronto Blue Jays, who had a victory today, Toronto 10-8 over Tampa Bay. They have clinched a berth for the first time since 1993 in the postseason. The Cubs had to do it while waiting for a West Coast game to finish. They do clinch for the first time since 2008. They will go to the playoffs. The celebration last night cost them, though. Pittsburgh beat them today by a score 4-0. And the Mets can clinch the division title with either a win or a Nationals loss. That could happen today. Heading to October, as the number of teams are coming fairly well into focus, who are going to make it play some October baseball. Pitch will be taken by Rusney Castillo for a strike. Castillo did not play in the ballgame last night. 0 for 2 lifetime off Wei and Chen. Right back to him. 1-0. Let's take a look at our T-Mobile chance for you to tweet in your strongest fan photo. Use the O's couch cam and you just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. And it's brought to you by T-Mobile. Glorious day here. Fall really setting in New England. Clear skies. Lights are on. Not taking effect yet. A number of Oriole fans have made the trip to Boston. Here is Brock Holt. Holt had a 2 for 3 in the game last night. What a year he's having against the Orioles. 347 batting average against the Orioles with a home run and 9 runs batted in.
Yeah, he's been consistent offensively all year long, and he's another one of those super utility players, much like Ryan Flaherty. Lavillo will move him all over the place, and he's a good defender, much like Flaherty is as well.
He will take the pitch, and it will miss down low. 1 ball, 2 strike count on Holt. Against the left-handers this season, Holt's hit .314. Oof. And .274 off righties. That'll get you a job.
Oh, yeah.
Ground ball fouled.
Well, he doesn't have a lot of movement with his body. Just picks that front foot up, sets it down, and he's got plenty quick enough hands. He's one of those hitters that loves to use the whole field. Pretty much defenses will play him traditionally straight up. Here in this situation, Manny pulled off that left field line a little bit.
And a little chopper that'll come back to Chen. He has to make the quick flip because Holt can fly. 2 outs. And the Orioles are going to return home to begin the final week of the regular season. A 4-game series will kick it off against the Jays on Monday. On Wednesday, fans get the Miguel Gonzalez designed El Mariachi t-shirt. So don't miss out. Final t-shirt giveaway. For tickets, Orioles.com or 888-848-BIRD. 4 against the Jays, 3 against the Yankees. Close out the 2015 season. The Orioles back down to a game under 500 with the loss last night. Trying to get back to 500 today. And a pitch will miss down low. 2 down, nobody on. Here's Josh Rutledge. He did not play in the ball game last night, and he faces Wei-Yin Chen for the first time in his career. Rutledge, 353 off lefties. However, that's just a 6 for 17 since being called up. And we'll take the pitch away for a ball. 2 ball, 1 strike count.
Now, Rutledge hadn't been on the move for the last couple years. In 2014, over the winter, was traded from the Rockies to the Angels, and then this past July, traded from the Angels over to the Red Sox for Shane Victorino. Rutledge, another one of those players that has to prove himself to a new organization and new leadership at the top.
He's got 141 games of major league experience over the years. He's played second base, third base, primarily at the major league level. That one, Chen moved that one in on him. It'll be fouled away, and a 2 ball, 2 strike count from Wei-Yin Chen.
One thing that makes Wei-Yin Chen so valuable, that ability to move the fastball in and out. He is not afraid to throw inside. You see what that 5th pitch is on the Nissan pitch track.
Got that one in the air to center field. Again, that wind is going to hold it up. Reimold goes into the sun and hauls it in, and a 1-2-3 inning for Wei-Yin Chen. Fly ball pitcher in this ballpark today, advantageous. And brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com and by your local Mercedes dealership. What are you looking at? Well, it's on the Hancock building. That crane is not part of that, by the way. What is it? I think it's a man. Mike and I agree. It's a man on a dock looking out over the water. It's an artwork, Boston. It's been in the news the last couple of days. News stations have gone out and asked people on the street, what do you think it is?
And the man is wondering why he's on the side of a building right now.
Could understand that. And I'm wondering about the people in the building who have their office space where those right. Where that is. Might be a little dark. Back to the top of the order, Nolan Reimold, and the pitch will be a strike on the inside corner. Nolan flied out his first time up. The left-hander Breslow, 32 pitches. He's going to throw somewhere around between 40 and 50 and then be out of the game. If he pitches effectively here for a couple innings, it's going to be tempting for Lovallo, the interim manager, to leave him in there and try and get through the 5th, I would think.
Absolutely. And
give him a chance to be a winner. But Torre will have to decide that as he goes along here. The Orioles could have something to say about that if they can get to him. 2-2.
Breslow's had some success with the Red Sox back in 2013, 5-2 out of the pen in 61 appearances with a 1.81 earned run average. So certainly some big time success with the Red Sox last year. Setback with a 5.96 earned run average, and this year he's kind of struggled through as well. So I'd like to finish this season on a positive note.
3 ball, 2 strike count. Straightaway defense, and he walked him. That will get him out of the game, a couple of those, which is what he has. That's a leadoff walk for the Orioles here in the third inning, and it will bring up Ryan Flaherty.
Yeah, we talked about the success at Fenway Park. Well, Caleb Joseph hitting .300 with a couple homers, 6 RBI in 9 games. Well, Ryan Flaherty, .388, home run, 11 RBIs in 20 games here. Loves coming back home and playing in front of his friends and family. Ryan Holt, .322 in 18 games.
Flaherty with a runner on, and the pitch taken inside. Flied out to left field, his first time up, protecting against the bunt. Holt even with the bag at third. Rest of the infield at double play depth. You see the shadows moving towards the outfield. Right field is a real tough field right now. But Showalter was talking about it before the game. Said, how'd you like to be playing right field in a game that starts at 4 o'clock at Fenway, where everybody, some 40,000 people in the ballpark, expect you to see what you can't possibly see, the baseball. Sun is right in the eyes. Center field a little better because you got an angle, but not right field. 1 ball, 1 strike delivery on the way. Flaherty goes to second base. There's 1. Bogarts. There's 2. That'll take care of the leadoff walk and maybe keep Breslow around a little longer.
Breslow coming up with the pitch he needs. See Reimold getting down there. Rutledge with the high flip, but Bogart's able to handle it and complete the double play. Bogart's having a tremendous defensive season. Rutledge get a speed underneath him with the Red Sox, taking advantage of his opportunities.
So 2 down, nobody on, and that will bring up Manny Machado. Machado drew a walk his first time up. At the age of 35, Breslow becomes the first pitcher to make a start in the majors at that age since Troy Percival did it back in 07. First major league start at that age. In the American League, it was an Oriole who had held the previous mark for the oldest. The last in the American League to make a major league start at age 35 or older was Danny Boone, not Daniel Boone, Danny Boone. He was 36 years old for the Orioles back in 1990. That ball in the air to center, hit hard, but again a lot of room. And Bradley's there to put it away. Machado retired, only 3 up in the inning, and it is scoreless going to the bottom half. Gulf Coast. Go beyond the stadium to Siesta Beach, named by 2015 TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Awards as #1 in beaches. Plan now at visitsarasota.org. Of course, that is the spring training home of the Orioles, and it is that time of year where people start thinking about Sarasota, where it is 84 and sunny today. Oh. Beautiful fall weather here. And as soon as you see that first piece of white come out of the air, you head south.
Yeah. You're thinking, when do pitchers and catchers report?
That's right. Here is Blake Swihart doing the catching, switch hitter, not in the ball game last night. Chen's delivery to him is topped foul right at the plate. Swihart has hit .211 right-handed, .291 left-handed, only a couple of home runs, one from each side of the plate. Bradley, and then the top of the order, Betts. Bottom of the third inning, no score. Looked like he was playing another game on that swing right there.
Yeah, a little in between. After a changeup, Chen rides a fastball to the top of the zone, and Swihart doesn't know what to do with it. Those underwater hacks.
And that will be fouled off the other way. Swihart keeps the at-bat alive with the 0-2 count. Boston trying to stay out of last place. That's their goal. They are 73 and 80. They're a game and a half behind the team above them, Tampa Bay. Swihart again fooled on a pitch, but it's inside in the dirt, and a 1-ball 2-strike count.
Yeah, still something to play for with most of the teams. Of course, the Red Sox don't want to finish in the cellar. Orioles still battling to make it into the wild card, but certainly don't want to finish below 500. Talked about Tampa or Toronto at the top right now. They're shooting for the best record in the home field advantage, and of course want to keep the Yankees off their heels. The Yankees 4 games back.
2-2, and he fooled him. He was not looking for that heater, and Chen will get his first strikeout. Swihart down.
Wayne Chen's been moving the ball around nicely, working the outside corner. Nice little fade there. The change, sort of a straight change coming out of Chen. Chen's working on his off-speed pitches, and I think that's something that has been developed by the Orioles. Dave Wallace. The changeup and the slider have become quality pitches for him.
Bradley will take the pitch on the inside corner for a strike. Wei Chen comes in with the 7th best ERA in the league, 3.36. He is 4th in fewest walks per 9 innings in the American League. Good numbers. There is Heath Embry getting ready in the bullpen. As we said, a bullpen day with a bullpen starter. In the air, left field, Flaherty coming over, wind blowing it over and in, up against the wall, and no chance on that one. It ends up in the seats.
Got to deal with the elements. Wind's blowing around quite a bit, pushing the ball in and away from Flaherty there. He talked about the sun for the right fielder, but you also have to be aware of the wind when the ball gets up above the stadium. The wind can play tricks on the baseball, sometimes swirling in stadiums.
So little room down there in that infamous left field corner. Try and catch a foul ball. Less than a step. And again, very late on it, and Chen picks up another strikeout. 2 down here in the 3rd inning.
Great fastball from Wei Chen. 94 painted away. Is he at the top of his game right now, or what? Nothing in the heart of the plate. Working the edges with all of his pitches.
Hit the ball right where he wants it, and he's got 2 down. Betts coming up. Fly down to center field is first time up. Orioles have 2 hits. Red Sox have just 1. Pedroia got 1 a single. And the off-speed delivery is in there for a strike. Mookie Betts just 1 for 13 lifetime off Wei Chen. Fastball, and that's going to miss outside. Betts hitting .307 off the lefties and .286 off righties. Red Sox have good numbers against left-handers. Look out. Turned that one foul, and it was like a skimmer on a lake off the top of the dugout and about 100 rows back.
Yeah, that slider just chasing Betts inside. He had to somehow find a way to get the bat to it just to keep this AB alive. Got to it. The thing you can do is pull it foul. He did it about as hard as you're going to see.
Chen working ahead of the hitters. 0-2 delivery here, and that will be fouled off the other way. Red Sox are 20 and 24 against left-handed starters on the season. They have done much better of it in the second half. Lovallo taking over for John Farrell to finish the season while John battles cancer. And that pitch will be taken outside, and a 1-ball 2-strike count. 1-2, 2 down. Chen trying to make it a 1-2-3 inning. And again the other way, and that too out of play.
Wayne feeling really good about the heater right now, throwing it consistently firm, 93, 94 miles an hour.
This will be the 7th pitch of this at bat. He's had a couple of those so far. Chen has won the battle. 1-ball 2-strike delivery, and that'll be in the kitchen. It'll back him off a little bit. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Chen not afraid to pitch inside, which helps make him that much more effective to try and gain ownership of that middle out part of the plate. 2-2 delivery, and that's where he went, and he got him. So Chen strikes the side out here in the 3rd. Scoreless ball game. Our Mazda do-ups: Davis, Pierce, and Wieters. Why? July 4, Avisail Garcia, 9th inning, reaches, saves the ball game. The next day, J.B. Shuck, 2-run homer, caught. July 17, J.D. Martinez, running catch, right field wall, Detroit. August 17, Billy Burns, center field fence, Camden Yards. Last night, 2 outs, top of the 9th. Mookie Betts, what a catch. Count them, 5 denied.
Unbelievably. That's tough luck for Chris Davis. That's 8 more RBI to add on to potentially 5 more home runs that were taken away this season from Davis.
Buck was asked today if he'd ever seen that many on one player in his baseball days, and he said no. Couldn't remember seeing 5. That ground ball will go into the shift. They made by Rutledge, and that will retire Davis, and there's one away. Not receiving MASN mobile alerts due to new regulations. Some Oriole fans have stopped receiving mobile text alerts from MASN. To rejoin and receive in-game updates, team news, and exclusive prizes, just text the word Orioles to 29292. So Davis out of there. Pierce, 44 pitches thrown by Breslow. Can he get through 5? Pierce, a strikeout victim, his first time up. They've got the bullpen ready if needed. It will be. It's just a question of when. Set up, low and away. Pitch was inside, down the line, heading to the seats, and foul.
Breslow, much like Hill last night, keeping this Orioles offense off balance by changing speeds and location. Not the big curveball like Hill has, but a nice little slider. A bunch of change-ups to keep Orioles offense off the fastball.
Pierce with the 1-ball 1-strike count. Outfield shaded to left. Pitch away and way outside. It'll go to 2-1. Steve, of course, vying for a position with the Orioles for next season. Trying to have a good finish. Tough year offensively for him. Another pitch away by Breslow. And he falls behind. 3 balls and 1 strike.
I think Steve Pearce fell into a category much like a number of the Orioles starters. He was rewarded for that great year he had offensively, where he put out 21 home runs, and really a key to their success, walking away with the American League East title. I think he just tried too hard to do better early on in the season and dug himself a little hole that he battled through. He's been relaxing a little bit more lately.
And now there's that Sunfield in right. He gets over, though, gets the glove up, and makes the play. And played by Betts. Pearce is retired. The Orioles close out the regular season. Fan Appreciation Weekend against the Yankees starts next Friday. All weekend long, you've got all kinds of events. Post-game fireworks. Johns Hopkins Medicine presents it on Friday. Orioles knit bomber hats. First 20,000 fans. 15 and over Saturday. Steve Pearce fans choice bobbleheads AT&T on Sunday. That's for 25,000, 15 and over. So get your tickets at Orioles.com. 2 down, nobody on here in the 4th inning. Wieters flied out to center field. His first time up. Big house on hand here. Final weekend. Red Sox at home. Pitch will be taken down low for a ball. 2-0 count. This probably will be Breslow's last inning. Suspect he'll go in and talk to the manager and Carl Willis, pitching coach, to how he feels, but he don't want to do anything to hurt the arm and extend it too far.
Up over 50 pitches now, 53, and see him losing a little bit of command. Season high 43 pitches, so uncharted territory this season for Breslow, and see him losing a little bit of the command, falling behind 3-0.
His career high innings pitched 3 2/3 back in 2005 at the major league level. So you talk about extending yourself. He's doing that in this game. Here's the 3-1 delivery on the way. Wieters the shattered bat. Ball goes to third, bat to short. Play made over to first, and Holt gets it. So the Orioles are retired. 1, 2, 3. Good job by Breslow through 4 innings. Scoreless ball game. Lariano, a strong no-run 4-hit performance. Mercer 3-run home run in the 5th inning. Those 2 teams are going to meet in all likelihood the wild card game, and it will be played in Pittsburgh. The Astros beat the Rangers. Astros too little too late, as that 9-7 win. 2 home runs career. Altuve 2 home runs as well. 2 of the really bright stars for them all year long. And the Blue Jays beat the Rays 10-8. You can't score enough runs against the Jays. Bautista had 2 home runs in the game. David Price pitching for the first time at the Trop, his old home. 5 runs, 6 hits over 5 innings in that ball game. The Blue Jays have already clinched a playoff spot. And in all likelihood, they're going to finish ahead of the Yankees and win the division. Toronto's up by 4 games now in the division lead, 4.5 with their win today over New York. Wei-Yin Chen, scoreless ball game. Big swing and a miss by Pedroia, base hit, and the only hit the Red Sox have came in the first inning. We are in the bottom of the 4th. Orioles 2 hits, Boston 1. Nobody scored. This has been about pitching so far in this game. Chen's delivery hit in front of home plate, goes to short. Hardy's got it, and the out. This is what the wild card looks like now in the American League. Yankees are well situated, if they don't win the division, to be the top wild card team and play a wild card game at home. Houston right now has that spot. Los Angeles a game, the Angels a game behind, 2 Minnesota, 3.5 Cleveland, and Houston, you can hear the fingernails coming down the chalkboard. They're just trying to hang on.
They sure are. Man, oh man, team that have been on such a roll all season long. Things kind of get locked up with the bullpen, kind of maybe getting tired here at the end of the season. It's certainly been a struggle for them here the last month.
See if they can hang on to that spot. Here's Bogaerts. Off the end of the bat the other way. Xander Bogaerts denied a hit by a fine play in left field by Ryan Flaherty, his first time up. Bogaerts with the best average against left-handers in the league at .377. Just another big number for him. Check swing, and somehow it hit the bat. Fouled away 0-2.
I think the hitter's having a hard time picking up the baseball right now with the shadows and how bright it is out in center field. We've talked about the 4 o'clock starts, how hard they are on hitters and even defenders that are in the sun field.
Another shattered bat. Bloop at first. Diving. Can't make the play. Steve Pearce. Good effort.
Yeah, great effort by Pearce. That's what you're going to get out of Steve Pearce. He may not look like some of the superstar players, but he's certainly going to give you everything he's got on every play. Here, a nice effort. Diving. Trying to get that foul ball jam shot off the bat of Bogaerts.
Now he looks like Pedroia. 0-2 count, 1 down. Bogaerts stands back in. Wei-Yin Chen, 2 1-2-3 innings in a row. Pitch will be taken down low. He has retired the last 9 hitters that he has faced. In his starts this year, he has done that a lot, which is so impressive. Dave Wallace, pitching coach, watching, and that's retire a lot of hitters in a row. Shut a team down through portions of a ball game with nobody on base. That really gives the offense a chance to get going. Adam Jones, will he play tomorrow? Kind of up to him as to how he feels. Adam out of yet another. That's 5 he's missed.
He's got his jersey on, though.
He's
That's
available.
a good sign.
Yep, he's available. Swing and a miss on a great turnover pitch. Bogaerts has struck out. That's the 4th for Chen.
Wayne's got all his offerings working right now. Fastball's explosive, sliders tight. Bogaerts down on the hard slider, 82 miles an hour. Nice late finish on that pitch.
So a 2 away, nobody on. Here is Shaw. Travis Shaw grounded out his first time up. Tough season for him against the Orioles. He's had an outstanding year, but against the Orioles he's 1 for 17. The one hit was a home run, 2 RBIs, and that pitch is going to miss down low for a ball. Emery's still up in the bullpen. He's been ready for an inning plus. We'll see whether or not they let Breslow come back out again. If he can get through 5 and the Red Sox could get a run, they'd have a chance to, in his first career start, get a win. The way these offenses are going right now, though, nobody's going to get a lead. 2 ball, 2 strike count. Left-hander's delivery, and that's a swing and a miss. 5 strikeouts, 2 more in this inning. Retires the side in order for the 3rd straight inning. Chen is on. Now for the offense. No score.
Pretty well for 4 innings, 55 pitches, a season high. Of course, came out of the bullpen, a career bullpen pitcher. He shut down the Orioles. No earned runs again in 4 innings of work. And now it's time for our AT&T call to the bullpen. AT&T, proud partner of the Baltimore Orioles. AT&T, mobilizing your world. Well, Heath Hembree coming out of the pen, brought over last season in the Jake Peavy deal, most of the season in AAA, but getting another opportunity here. Fastball 76% of the time. It's a good one too, 93 to 98 with the heater. 3.74 earned run average in 21 2/3 innings of work. 12 punch-outs, 5 walks, and holding opponents to a 244 overall batting average. Fly ball pitcher, 67% of his outs in the air. Used primarily as the closer in AAA Pawtucket, the Red Sox.
So Embry begins, and the pitch will be taken up high. Jonathan Schoop, Parra, and Hardy. Schoop had a base hit his first time up. Orioles' best chance. Second inning, 2 down. Second and third. Hardy grounded out. Schoop had a single, Parra the double in that inning. And the pitch will be taken away for a ball. Embry had one of his worst innings against the Orioles this year back in April on the 26th. He gave up 6 earned runs in his season debut. That was against Baltimore. Foul back into the screen. He has since settled it in a bit. He hasn't allowed a run 13 of the last 16 appearances, covering 20 innings. 2 ball, 1 strike count on Schoop. Jonathan goes after it, and again it'll be fouled right straight back. Embry against the Orioles on the year. This will be his 3rd appearance. 6 runs, 2 2/3 innings on 6 hits. He has no record against the Orioles in his career, and will step off. 2 ball, 2 strike count to Schoop. Orioles trying to get it going here in the 5th inning. And a swing and a foul tip into the mitt. He starts with a strikeout.
Let's look at his slider right there. Not a bad fastball. Take a look at a little cut action on Nissan pitch track. Just working off the plate. A little too much lateral movement on that pitch, but enough to get Jonathan Schoop for the first out of the 5th.
Parra coming to the plate. He had a double his first time up. Parra trying to pick it up here in September, hitting just 192, 74 at bats. And the pitch taken up high for a ball. Another decision the Orioles have to make regarding free agents involves Parra.
far the monster year in the National League with the Brewers, but hasn't done what the Orioles had hoped since arriving here. You can see flashes certainly of why he is considered one of the better outfielders in the game. Two-time Gold Glove winner. See where he hit that power, or that double in the power zone. Up and away, stayed on top.
Embry's delivery to him in the air to left field, right where they were playing him. Castillo is there, and there are 2 down. Register now for the Longevity Foundation's Breathe Deep Baltimore. It's a 5K walk to raise funds and awareness for lung cancer, remembering the Orioles' late public relations director, Monica Pence Barlow. It'll be held next Saturday, October 3 at the ballpark. Proceeds benefit nonprofits in their research to find a cure for cancer. To register, go to Orioles.com/longevity. Here's J.J. Hardy, pitch taken inside. He grounded out his first time up. Only Orioles' chance with the runner in scoring position. They only had 2 chances last night, went 0 for 2. That's how they were shut down. That complete game win by Rich Hill. That pitch is going to miss outside, and a 2-0 count. Embry working from that first base side. He's way over on the rubber, just barely getting a foot, half a foot, touching it as is required. 2-0 pitch on the way, burns a fastball in. 2-1.
Not a bad fastball. See Rich Hill there in the middle of the picture. Look at his numbers last night as he defeated the Orioles. 9 innings, just 2 hits given up.
In the air to right field, Sunfield. Mookie Betts trying to find it. Where is it? Diving, can't get it. Makes the turn at first and will stay. And that's what we were talking about. That ball in right field is tough to find.
Take a look. He's back there waiting for the ball to come out of the sun. When it finally does, the wind gets on it, pushes it down in front of him, and he can't make the adjustment to come up with the 3rd out. Base hit for Hardy.
No, the Orioles shortstop picks up the single.
Pretty good effort. We saw that effort he made to end the game last night, almost falling into the Red Sox bullpen to take away a home run from Davis. Can't come down with the one in front of him off the Hardy bat.
Now Reimold with a runner at first base. Orioles pick up their 3rd hit. 2 singles, Scope and Hardy, doubled Parra. 2 down, 1 on. Reimold a walk, and he is flied out. As these 2 offenses battling some good pitching early in this ball game. That one down low, nice stop made. Swihart able to hold the runner. JJ is not going to take off unless that ball is well beyond the reach of the catcher, knowing how hard the runs are to get. One ball, 1 strike count. Embry's delivery. Breaking ball is going to miss outside. Reimold, who has taken so many pitches, especially since moving into that leadoff spot, getting on base, drawing walks. That's why he's been there. Showalter putting him up top with his on-base percentage numbers. And that one's going to miss outside. Greg Gibson gets a stare from Embry on that one. Gibson is a pronounced hitter's umpire. You're not going to get, if you're a pitcher, a lot of close calls. 3-1 the count. And that one will be taken down low. Orioles get their 3rd walk of the ball game. And they get 2 on, but there are 2 away.
Great opportunity, though, finally to get a runner into scoring position, and the Orioles' hottest hitters here at Fenway Park. Ryan Flaherty.
He's made a fine defensive play. Now he'll try and drive in the first run of the ball game. Flaherty is .216 this year with runners in scoring position. Orioles' 2nd chance of the ball game. Hit into a double play, and he is flied out. Defense infield with 2 down can back up, play deep. And the pitch down low. How's the ball travel on this infield generally?
Yeah. Well, bounces left to right. I think historically this Red Sox infield has been one of the roughest ones to play. They have cleaned it up for sure. A lot of dirt on the infield, so it makes it a little quicker. Once it gets through the grass, it's typically gone. Not as slow as Camden Yards, but say about an average speed infield.
1-0. That ball up in the air to right field. Betts is going to try it again. He sees this one. And when you see it, you can catch it. And he does. Orioles, no runs, 1 hit, no errors, and 2 are left on base. 0-0. Series of Aldo Jimenez will be in the mound against Henry Owens. Our coverage on Masson begins at 1 with those extra presented by Jeep, followed by our game coverage at 1:30. All the access you need right here on Masson.
Take a look at tomorrow's starters. Baldo, of course, that 12th win was his 100th win of the career, and he'll take on Henry Owens, another lefty starter for the Boston Red Sox. Owens most of the year in AAA, called up the beginning of August, has now made 9 pretty solid starts for the Red Sox. Just 23 years old.
Here's Rizny Castillo going after the first pitch. Had to back up on it. Machado, fast runner. Nice play. Manny Machado intentionally getting it over there on the one hop to Pierce, because that was going to be quicker than trying to get his balance and gun it.
You're exactly right. Did not have time to set the feet. So this is how you improvise. He does get his feet underneath him, but the strong one hop throw to Pierce put off balance right there. Man, he can do a lot of things. Haven't seen one like that, but he's got everything in that bag of tricks.
Play you usually see on the artificial carpet, where infielders will use the bounce you get off the carpet. Here he used it off the dirt and gets the out. Here is Holt, grounded out, his first time up. And the pitch will miss for a ball. No score. Bottom of the 5th inning. 3 hits for the Orioles. 1 for the Red Sox. A first inning single by Pedroia. Wei Chen has shut him out. No walks and 5 strikeouts so far in the ball game in his 4th outing against Boston this year. And that pitch is going to be outside for a ball. 12 in a row retired by Wei Chen. And that pitch is going to miss a little bit high and will fall behind on the speedy Holt. 3 ball 1 strike count. Rutledge waiting on deck. Holt will take it inside. There's the first walk surrendered. Comes with 1 away here in the 5th inning.
Buck, a little quizzical look there. You're wanting that slider to be a strike that was at the top of the zone.
Leaders too.
Yeah. Take a look at that last fastball, just darting down and in. to Holt for ball 4. Wei-Yin Chen's been on a nice little roll as far as command. No walks in his last 2 starts. Showing 1 there.
So Rutledge, who flied out to center field, will stand in. Runner on at first base. He's checking down to third. Ryan Butterfield, the coach down there, as to whether or not Holt might be going. That ball off the fist will be foul back. This is where that Red Sox team speed can make a difference. Holt has gone 8 out of 9 stealing bases. It is very tough to steal on Wei-Yin Chen. They are base stealers are 5 for 7, but most of those have come in odd situations, not the straight up where a pitcher gets to pay attention situation. Pitch is in there for a strike, and the count will go to 1-2 on Rutledge.
Well, you got to like the way Matt Wieters is working Wei-Yin Chen right now, mixing up all of his pitches. Wei-Yin Chen has everything at his disposal to throw for strikes, and Wieters taking advantage of that.
1-2 delivery will be up and away. Wei-Yin closing out the season, he hopes, with some real good numbers. He's gone 5-1 in his last 8 starts. In those starts, ERA of 3.4. He'll start this game in the opener against the Yankees. That ball drilled down the line. It's going to go to the monster and fair. It'll bounce into that corner. Making the turn, the speed. Holt, he's going to come home. Throw's going to come all the way to the plate. And not in time. And there's the speed we were talking about. A double for Rutledge and an RBI.
Yeah, real good team speed for the Red Sox, the young Red Sox. And here you see the ball getting hammered down in the corner by Rutledge. Kicks back, takes a little extra time from Flaherty to get to it. And Holt just flying. Great read there. Can see the ball in front of him. And he has some wheels. Just getting that left foot in there before the Wieters attempt at the tag. The Red Sox on the board first.
8th RBI for Rutledge in the 33 games he has played in. He's on at second base. And here's Swihart, a strikeout victim. His first time up. He'll get a good secondary lead. Pitch inside, almost hit him. And Wieters says, I want a timeout. I'm going out to the mound. Boy, it has not been. You talk about showing the effects of those walks in a ball game. Last night, Kevin Gausman walked 3 and they all scored. Here's the first walk of this ball game by Wei-Yin Chen. It scores.
Yeah, Red Sox certainly taking advantage of those extra opportunities. And walks obviously hurting the Orioles here in this 2-game series so far.
1-0 count. Blake Swihart. Chen's delivery to him will be off speed and up. And he will get ahead on the count 2-0. Wei-Yin, you see at the 73 pitch mark. They're not holding Rutledge at all at second. Swihart will take it. It'll be in the outside corner for a strike. Swihart has done a real good job with runners in scoring position. He's 267 overall for an average. His runner in scoring position average is 294. 2-1 delivery. Gets a piece, keeps the at-bat alive.
A good slider, though, from Wei-Yin Chen. Been able to get to that one, and at times, really the only time Wei-Yin Chen gets in trouble when he starts too aggressive with the fastball and leaves one on the dish. So Rutledge got a hold of. And of course, Wei-Yin Chen's given up some home runs this year, 28.
2-2 to third. That's going to be a base hit. Rutledge is going to be stopped at third as the throw in by Flaherty to the cutoff man. So all of a sudden, Wei-Yin Chen, after having retired 12 in a row, is getting hit.
High fastball. Swihart stays on top of him, beats it through that 5-6 hole. Rutledge being held up by third base coach Ryan Butterfield.
So first and third, still only 1 down. The Red Sox have a run in the 1-0 lead. And that will bring Jackie Bradley Jr. to the plate, hitting in the 9 hole. He too is a strikeout victim. his first time up. Red Sox got a chance to do damage here in the 5th inning. And that'll be taken for a strike. And that base hit by Swihart, even though he didn't get an RBI, that's the first chance with a runner in scoring position they've had in the ball game, and he gets a hit. Manny Machado was even with a bag at third, move to the shortstop side to take the bunt away from Bradley. Bradley will take it. That's going to be in the inside corner for a strike. 0-2.
I'll tell you what, you look at Wei and Chen in these situations. Lowest opponent average with runners in scoring position. Wei and Chen leading the way with just 168 batting average. Arrieta, Martinez, Carnes, and Shields just following him.
Thought about it. He's gone on the outside corner. Bradley has had 2 bad at bats against Wei and Chen. Chen has had 2 real good pitch selection at bats.
Big strikeout here. 2 fastballs, then painting a slider on the outside corner for the second out.
So first and third, but 2 down, top of the order. That'll bring Betts up. With a run in, Chen trying to hold it right there. Betts 321 in these situations on the season overall with that big 291 average. Wei and Chen 6 strikeouts in the ball game, and that'll be down low for a ball. Betts 0 for 2 is flied out, struck out, and is now 1 for 14 lifetime off Chen. The other 3 starts he had against the Red Sox, he struck out 3 in the first game, 5 in the second, and 5 in the third. And that pitch is there for a strike. Chen has not worked against the Red Sox since June, where he went to 5 innings, 2 runs, 7 hits, got the win. 1-1 delivery on the way. Little miss inside. 2 ball, 1 strike count.
Not a bad miss there, though. If you're going to miss in off the plate, especially with the green monster so close.
Rutledge, Swihart, their leads. Pitch is going to be away. And a 3 ball, 1 strike count. And you've got Dustin Pedroia with the highest average around against Chen waiting on deck. 3-1 delivery on the way, and he walked him. So 2 walks in the inning in the game for Wei and Chen. That'll bring Dave Wallace out to the mound, bases loaded, 2 down, Pedroia coming up.
It's going to slow him down a little bit. So Dave Wallace is going to come out and give him a break. It's a little bit of a breather. Wei and Chen was on a nice little roll, and sometimes you get ahead of yourself. And just need to pause back into the zone. He's throwing the ball very well. Command of all of his pitches. A couple walks, though, in this inning. Dave Wallace saying, hey, step back, slow down, stay aggressive. A couple dangerous hitters, though, coming up. Pedroia, you said, told the numbers off Wei and Chen, well up over 400, closer to 500. Of course, the last 10 games, Dustin Pedroia's hitting up over 380.
So here's a big situation. Pedroia's 1 for 4 with the bases loaded this year. He's got Rutledge at third, Swihart at second, and Betts at first. The base hit his first time up, went the other way. He'll take the first pitch, and it is there for a strike. He grounded out his second time to the plate. Pedroia now has 18 hits in 37 at bats against Wei and Chen. Pedroia DHing today and takes the pitch down low for a ball. Wei and Chen trying to work his way around this inning. An RBI double by Rutledge. So far is the only run in. One ball, 1 strike count. And that's going to be up and away. And he gets behind on Pedroia, 2-1. Fifth inning, not like the first 4 for Wei and Chen control wise. Runners lead. Pedroia up in the air to left field. curving foul, and it will stay foul down the line. He got underneath that one, popped it way up in the air.
Yeah, I think Pedroia wanting to do some serious damage on that swing. Back shoulder kind of dropped, and he got underneath it and yanks it foul.
Pedroia has, with a base hit, he got an 8-game hit streak going against the Orioles now. He's had 12 hits in his last 31 at bats against the O's. 2-ball, 2-strike delivery to him. Pedroia again fights it off.
Nice try right there, though. Good call by Wieters. See a little dip in the bat head. The hitter trying to do a little too much. Elevate. The bat head will drop right underneath, but Pedroia with the 2 strikes, a little bit shorter there to keep this at bat alive.
Pedroia's got a .350 average this year in this ballpark, 94 points higher than his road average. Wei-Yin Chen 2-2. Pitch on the way to him. Pedroia takes. Can't go any further. 3-2. 2 down. Bases loaded. Chen full count delivery. Pedroia fouls it off again. Way out in front. It's that one out of the ballpark, up over the roof.
You gotta like the confidence, though, in the slider from Wei-Yin Chen. Very good about putting that in the zone. Nice to see him come with a changeup.
8th pitch of the at bat. Three-two delivery. Pedroia gone on a strike called. And no argument. Chen wins the battle. 7 strikeouts. The Red Sox will pick up a run on a couple of hits. They will leave the bases loaded. Take a look at our Honda do-ups. The Orioles down. We'll have Machado, Davis, and Pierce coming up. Fire Chiefs of Maryland State Firemen's Associations. Email mdfirevolunteer@gmail.com to volunteer with your local fire rescue and EMS. The two-wheeler becoming ever more prevalent in all American cities, including Boston, especially with its college-packed crowd here.
And just as promised, back to the Red Sox bullpen. Matt Barnes now been riding the train up and down here for the Red Sox, the minor leagues and back to the big leagues, both in the rotation and the bullpen. Fastball 63% of the time. Pretty good heater, too. Can rush it up there in the mid-90s. Times get up to 98. And you see the inconsistencies. 5.97 earned run average as an opponent. Opponent's hitting .329 overall. Fly ball pitcher, 61% of his outs in the air.
He had a scoreless inning in his last outing against Tampa Bay on Thursday. A couple of hits and a strikeout. Here's Manny Machado. Machado a walk, and he is flied to center. Manny will take it up high. Machado with the 0 for 5 so far in the first 2 games of this series. Embry worked an inning, gave up a hit, had a walk, and 1 strikeout. Overhander that literally hit the plate. Baltimore chop in Boston. Holt hustles. Nice play. And Manny risks injury, sliding in hands first.
Now the Baltimore chop right off the plate. But take a look at how Brock Holt defends this. Ball's way up in the air, but he gets off his feet. When the ball hits the glove, his right foot is down. He has the ability to make a strong throw, and he does, right on the money. See, up in the air, right foot down, off it goes. Great positioning there by Holt on a tough play. And Machado with that head first slide. Always kind of grimace when you see that. No need to do that at first base.
Can cost you dearly. Well, Chris Davis got the 200 strikeouts before he got to his 200th career home run. His strikeout in the first inning. He's now struck out 200 times this year and enters a select category. Only Chris Carter, Adam Dunn, Franklin Stubbs, and Mark Reynolds have struck out 200 times in a season. So Chris Davis becomes just the 5th major leaguer ever to reach the 200 strikeout mark. Pitch on the way, and that will be foul back. What comes with that, of course, in modern day baseball are home runs and RBIs. And Chris, as we said, tied for the lead in homers. He is second in runs batted in with 110. Donaldson with 121 starting the day, the leader. And the pitch up high from Barnes, and a 2-ball 2-strike count on Chris.
Kind of funny though when you see Chris Davis go through these stretches like he's been on, where very consistent, uses the whole field, his batting average is up and still hitting for power. You can't see the 200 strikeouts, but at times he is seeing the ball well. He'll swing right through.
So 2 Ks in this ball game.
See here, just thinking about something else. Maybe that breaking ball, the fastball sneaks by him in the outside corner.
So Davis retired, and boy, these 3 Red Sox pitchers so far confounding the Orioles. Here is Pierce. He has struck out and flied out, and the breaking ball will be taken outside. 2 down, nobody on. Top of the 6th inning. Red Sox have the 1-0 lead. Burns delivery of fastball at 96. This is one of the ultimate tests for hitters. We talked about it at the beginning. This just doesn't happen. How many times do you face a starter who's a reliever who's going to throw 40-45 pitches? And then you're going to see, if you're lucky enough to go around the order a few times, 2 or 3 more pitchers in the ball game throwing something entirely different.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. It's tough to get a game plan. It's tough to get a rhythm at the plate. And a lot of these pitchers that the Orioles are seeing right now, aside from Breslow, of course, they haven't seen too often. Some of these arms very young, have been on that train from the minor leagues to the big leagues, up and down, so not a lot of consistent looks. Some of these arms in the bullpen, and the Red Sox, of course, in September, like most teams, bolster that bullpen. They have 12 arms out there this month.
3-1 delivery, and that is going to be outside. So the Orioles will get a walk here with 2 down in the 6th inning. Our PNC minor league report.
Now let's celebrate the Bowie Bay Sox. 79-63 record, and they are the Eastern League Western Division champs. Trey Mancini led the league in batting with .330 batting average. Joe Gunkel 8 wins with a .259 earned run average. And Quincy Lattimore, midseason and postseason All-Star. Nice job by those players, of course, led by their manager Gary Kendall, who had another outstanding year there in Double-A.
Great job. Congratulations on a wonderful season. Here is Matt Wieters, runner on at first base. There are 2 down. facing Barnes for the first time. Wieters 0 for 2. Flied out, grounded out. The high set, overhand pitch, and that will be in there for a strike. See the sunlight in the stands now. It's gone beyond the right fielder, just barely touching the bullpen wall, and then up into the seats. Bullpen guys won't mind it today, having that late sun.
Yeah, keep it warm down there, right?
And Wieters will take a strike at the knees. Barnes against the Orioles, 4th game this year. He's worked 4 1/3 innings, given up a run on 5 hits, suffered a loss against the Orioles this year, and that is his record lifetime against the O's, 0-1. 1 ball, 2 strike count. Wieters will take it. It'll be outside. 2-2 on the fastball. Only 1 run on the board coming in that 5th inning. RBI double by Rutledge. 1-3-0 for Boston. 0-3-0 for the Orioles. 2-2 delivered towards second base. Rutledge, and that's the inning. No runs, no hits, no errors, and 1 left on base. Red Sox 1, the Orioles 0.
Take a look at the run support average this season for the Orioles starters. Jimenez leading the way with that 5.37. Then Miguel Gonzalez, Wei-Yin Chen getting a nice number as well, 4.76. Tillman 4.72. So those guys getting enough run support certainly to have a successful year. Kevin Gausman, wow, nothing for him, 2.44. Yesterday's ball game, Orioles offense couldn't put a run on the board, and of course offense being held down again by the Red Sox. No runs to help Chen.
It's always amazing, isn't it? Every year for every team there's always a pitcher who gets none of the runs.
Yeah.
You don't know why, you can't explain it, and it goes on for an entire season.
Yeah.
Well, the Orioles haven't gotten anything in 17 innings. Shutout last night. Go back to Washington, the last game played there, and this ball game today. Wei-Yin Chen's delivery. He's given up just the 1 run on 3 hits. Bogart's leading it off. Flied out, struck out, denied a hit by Flaherty. Fine catch in the first inning in left field up against the monster. This time he goes the other way, popped up. Scopes got the angle and will make the catch. 1 away, bottom of the 6th inning. This copyrighted telecast presented by authority of the Orioles may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Orioles. Right field, good place to be. Sun still shining. We'll be back with you to wrap up the road part of the Orioles 2015 season tomorrow. Baldo Jimenez, Henry Owens, 1 o'clock, O's Extra, 1:30 for the ball game. The attempted bunt is fouled off. Travis Shaw 0 for 2. Strikeout, ground out, and he is 0 for 6 in the first 2 games.
Sees himself a little opportunity with the Orioles in the shift. Machado over on the shortstop hole.
Then tries to do it by swinging and putting a ball into left field, and both times they have gone foul.
Big shift there by the Orioles defense.
Protecting and fouls it back. Keeps the count at 2 strikes. That will be outside. Started the game at 62 degrees. We're down to 57 as the official temperature in Boston. Another beautiful day scheduled for tomorrow with highs near 70. 1-2. Wei-Yin Chen.
Wei-Yin Chen at 99 pitches today, averaging 96.4, season high 117. He looks like he's feeling pretty sharp though right now. He's surprised that Buck lets him go a bit longer.
1-2 delivery away. Even though the Orioles have the series edge 11-6 on the year, they've only outscored the Red Sox 79-77. Ground ball down to first, foul. Red Sox have actually out-homered the Orioles by 1, 17-16. But it has been the pitching which has allowed the Orioles to have that good record against Boston this year. 3.36 ERA for the Orioles against Boston, and it's a run higher for the Red Sox pitchers. That ball in the air down the line right field towards the pesky pole. Parra over and will make the catch. A towering fly ball.
Nice concentration there by Parra. Ball gets up above the stadium. The wind starts doing some funny things. He's taking the short steps at the end to make sure he stayed under that baseball. Nice job by Chen to keep battling. Parra coming down with the second out.
2 down, bottom of the 6th. Grizzly Castillo has grounded out a couple of times. Last time on a fine play made by Manny Machado. Castillo, like Betts, in fact their entire outfield today has struggled against the Orioles pitchers this season. Castillo's had only 2 hits and 21 at bats. Bradley's hitting 118 against the Orioles, and Betts is hitting 158 against the Orioles. That will be fouled off and into the seats.
The Orioles would like to keep it that way for a number of years. Looks like these young outfielders are going to be with the Red Sox for a while.
1-2 delivery on the way. You hear continually from Red Sox fans their great concern in the offseason is that the Red Sox don't trade one of these young players in order to have to get a starting pitcher, which they need. Fouled off. You got to give to get. Would the Red Sox be willing to deal one of these young, really good players for a starter? Oliver Drake for the Orioles in the bullpen. That one in the air to left field. Flaherty back. Oh, off the wall. Banged off the 10. Reimold will back it up. It'll be a double.
That ball had some hair on it off the bat of Castillo. Flaherty trying to come down with another great play in left field, but ball keeps rising up over the head. Look at this bullet. The effort by Flaherty hard off the 10. Nice job by Nolan Reimold recognizing that, backing it up.
So a double with 2 down here in the 6th inning, their 4th hit of the ball game. And Holt will get the RBI chance. He has grounded out, walked, and scored the other run. Rutledge brought him in with a double. There are 2 away. Chen's delivery, and that'll be taken inside for a ball. Obviously, with the ability to get runs for either team in this game, every opportunity is a big one. That's a strike on the inside corner. Red Sox 1 for 3 with runners in scoring position. The Orioles with the 0 for 2 so far in the game. Holding the runner close, Hardy. Holt, middle, base hit, and an RBI. Castillo will come in to score a 2-out single by Brock Holt, and a 2-0 Red Sox lead. And that's going to be it for Wei-Yin Chen. So he got the first 2 outs here in the 6th inning, but could not find that 3rd one. So Chen will leave, will not have a chance to win his 11th of the season. Oliver Drake will be coming in from the bullpen with the Red Sox up 2-0.
As you're going to see, great command of the fastball. Changeup was perfect as Betts goes down. Slider was outstanding as well. Beautiful fastball there, working that fastball up in the mid-90s with unbelievable command of the slider for Wei-Yin Chen. Pedroia with the bases loaded gets the backdoor slider for strike 3, but ran into some trouble in the 5th inning where he gave up a run, and then in the 6th with 2 outs could not get the side retired. 2 runs given up for Wei-Yin Chen, and Oliver Drake now coming out of the Orioles bullpen. Fastball 41% of the time, but it's that changeup. It's a split finger 56% of the time. Throw it early for strikes, and then it'll be the put away pitch where he bounces it in the dirt. Monster numbers in AAA Norfolk this year. Take a look at his numbers here in the major leagues. This will be his 11th appearance. 3.55 earned run average, 13 punch outs, 7 walks. Opponent's hitting .271 overall. Lefties though just a 200.
Holtz at first base, Rutledge at the plate, and there he goes. Wieters had trouble with it and still could have had him, but the ball was dropped. I don't know what that was. Holt took off, but not very fast. Wieters bobbled the ball, still got it there in time, but Scope dropped it.
Nice recovery from Matt Wieters. See Holt reading the ball down in the dirt. One hopper is on the money, but Jonathan Scope in and out of the glove. Nice pickup by Wieters. That costly misplay. Hopefully not a costly misplay there for Scope.
Call that a wackadoodle. Stolen base. That'll be 9 out of 10 for Holt. He gets in scoring position. Rutledge will take the pitch. Rutledge already with an RBI double that came in the 5th inning and brought Holt home. And the Orioles getting a little sloppy here in the 6th inning. 2-0 lead. Red Sox on top. Rutledge is also flied out. That fastball is going to be right there for a strike from Drake.
Take a look at Oliver Drake's numbers this season in AAA Norfolk. 42 games, not a win, but a .82 earned run average and 23 saves in his 23 opportunities.
Nubber. Good play made by Drake, and we'll record the out. So the Red Sox will pick up a run on 2 hits, no errors. They leave 1 on, and after 6 have a 2-0 lead.
From Maine, he's feeling at home at left field at Fenway Park. Wei-Yin Chen loving that, taking one away from Bogarts. And Wei-Yin Chen, wow, was he in command early this ball game, racking up the punch outs. He gets Shaw down on the fastball away, but then it's Rutledge striking in the 5th inning for the Red Sox to double down that line. And all the way around comes Holt from first base. Red Sox ended up putting up another one in the 6th inning. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com for a free rate quote.
Jonathan Scope leading off the 7th inning. Base hit, and he is struck out. Down to 3rd, hit hard. Holt's got it. There's a worm eater right there. And Holt will pick those cleanly. 1 away. Help Maryland Governor Larry Hogan and the Orioles their fight against pediatric cancer, and save 50% on tickets to the upcoming games against the Blue Jays. You can contribute right now and get that savings. Go to Orioles.com/charity and become involved. Gerardo Parra stands in. Parra has doubled, and he has flied to left field. And that ball to short. Bogarts. Yikes. 2 quick outs here in the 7th inning.
It'll be nice to see the Orioles maybe take a pitch, make one of these bullpen arms work a little bit. The Orioles need base runners. A base runner on. We've seen them recently playing some good baseball where they haven't been able to get the number of hits, but they'll get a base runner on and somebody will pop one out of the park and get them right back in the game.
Yeah, only a 2-run differential here. Pitch is there for a strike to Hardy. He's had a base hit. He is grounded out. Breslow worked 4, no runs, 2 hits, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Embry worked an inning, a walk, a strikeout, a hit. Barnes now has given up just 1 walk to the 6 batters faced. We'll see more of the Red Sox bullpen here before this game is over. His delivery to Hardy will be fouled straight back. RBIs by Rutledge and Holt. 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th. Off Wei-Yin Chen have given them the lead. Chen 2 runs, 5 hits, 5 2/3. Holt has played an outstanding third base as well. Hardy will chop it foul. It will stay in foul territory.
That's the value of that Brock Holt. You can put him anywhere on the field and he will give you a quality game. See what he can do with the bat, but quality defender. He can play a big league shortstop.
Hardy having a little chat with Greg Gibson about where that foul ball hit. Not an argument, just a chat. 1-2 delivery, and that'll be outside. Red Sox, of course, playing without Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez. Sandoval with pneumonia, Ramirez shoulder. Ramirez is out for the year for sure. Sandoval probably is as well. And what are they going to do with him for next year? Well, one, they're going to pay him. After that, nobody seems to know. 3 ball, 2 strike count, 2 down. That ball in the air to left field, headed towards the monster, won't go anywhere. There's no carry on fly balls in this ball game. Castillo handles it. That'll do it. 7th inning stretch time. Boston up 2-0. Gary Thorne, Mike Bordy, great to have you with us here. Middle game of the 3-game set in Boston. And a 2-0 lead for the Red Sox. They won the ball game last night 7-0. And have shut the Orioles out so far in this game on just 3 hits. Red Sox bat, bottom half of the 7th. Blake Swihart will lead it off. Base hit. Andy is struck out. Oliver Drake will deliver, and that'll miss up high for a ball. Wind continues to blow in here as it has for the entire ball game. Pitch will miss inside, and the count's 2-0.
Yeah, every ball that goes up in the air here today at Fenway Park is getting knocked down up in the yard. Typically, you see a lot of balls flying out over the monster.
One just bounces away off Matt Wieters. Count goes to 3-0 from Drake on the leadoff batter. Flag has been unfurled. Old Glory blowing in all day out there in that center field flagpole. Swihart, figure he'll take here. He does. It is a strike on the outside corner. Chen walked 2. Those are the only Red Sox walks today. The Orioles have picked up 4 walks from the 3 Red Sox pitchers, but have not been able to take advantage of it. Turned on that one. We're talking about the condition of Fenway Park. Mike talking about how the infield can be kind of tough on bounces and make it even tougher. It's going to be tougher on the ground crew. They're going to play 4 football games here on the traditional football day, Thanksgiving Day in Massachusetts. Every high school plays. They're going to play 4 games here. Notre Dame's going to play a football game here this year. That will miss down low, and that will be a An ever dangerous leadoff walk. Swihart gets it. As promised earlier in the game, we've selected the Data Strong fan photo of the game. Tweet your strongest fan photo to O's Couch Cam. You just might see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. And we were told they're going to try and get approval to add even more seats down the right field side during the off season. You have to have city approval for that to get done for this ballpark in the middle of Boston. Jackie Bradley Jr. He'll take the pitch for a strike on the inside corner. He has struck out twice. 2 of the 7 Ks that Wei Chen had. That's a leadoff batter waiting on deck.
Talked about Oliver Drake and the success he had in AAA. Great opportunity for him here at the big league level. Also talked about Ryan Flaherty being kind of a hometown guy for Maine. Well, Oliver Drake is from Worcester, Mass. So also homecoming for him. Resides in Gardner, Mass. Born in Worcester.
Worcester, yes sir.
He's a hockey player.
A hockey player from Worcester.
Wicked good one, I heard.
Wicked. 0-2 delivery on the way, and that'll be outside for a ball. 1 ball, 2 strike count. From one of the great old mill towns along that river and route. Worcester, one of them. 1-2. Swihart the lead at first, not going anywhere, and Drake's delivery will be up high. Jackie Bradley Jr. works the count to 2 balls and 2 strikes. The Orioles will shift the infield now. They were pretty much straight up. Now they go into a complete shift with the count at 2-2. And that's where he hits it. It's deep. Will it stay fair? And it turns foul. Just missed one down that very short, but not much room to do it in right field line. Rondon up for the Orioles.
Oliver Drake, a couple different split fingers. One that he likes to throw for a strike, and that appeared to be a pitch there that hung up in the zone. The other one he likes to bury for the strikeout pitch.
And he got him. So he had one chance for the long ball, and it went foul. Strikeout victim number 1.
Keep that split finger down in the zone after working him up, and come up with a strikeout. Big first out here for Oliver Drake. You see that action there on the plate.
Drake a walk and a strikeout here in the 7th inning, and now Betts top of the order, 0 for 2 and a walk. Here in the 2 games, he has gone 0 for 5 so far. Swihart back to the bag. Pierce holding. Alexei Ogando for the Red Sox. He's been warming up and is ready to go. Barnes has worked a couple of innings, so Ogando probably is on his way in. That ball down the line left field's not going to be caught. Flaherty will have to play it high off the wall. It goes over his head. Coming to third, Swihart. He'll stay there. It's a double. Busy day in left field for Flaherty. The Red Sox using the monster to get some hits in this ball game.
Some bullets off the green monster. And that's squaring that one up. Red Sox in scoring position here in the 7th.
So Betts reaches. He had a walk and now the double. He's been on 29 consecutive games. They've got 2 in scoring position and a chance to put a dagger in the heart of the O's. Pedroia had that chance in the 5th inning. Bases loaded, got called out on strikes. The infield will be in. 1 down. Pedroia trying to drive it through, fouls it back. Dustin Pedroia 1 for 3 in the ball game, 2 for 6 in the 2 games. DHing in this ball game, Pedroia carries a .324 career average against the Orioles. That ball will be fouled back the other way as well. And the count of 2 strikes. Infield moving in even a couple of steps closer. Swihart at third base with a walk. That's the double at second.
Well, they must have read something from Swihart, possibly making a move on contact there. Sometimes infielders can read what a runner at third base is doing. He's not going on contact. They can back up a couple steps, give themselves a little bit more range. But if they're going on contact, you better shorten up a little bit, get a good first step.
Pedroia leaned out, watched it. 1 ball, 2 strike count to him. This game starting as it did at 4, officially a day game. Pedroia leads the majors in the day average, 382. Drake's delivery to him, and that'll be up high and away. Pedroia refusing to bite, and a 2 ball, 2 strike count. Red Sox stranded. The bases loaded in the 5th inning. Left a runner in scoring position in the 6th. Now have 2 in scoring position in the 7th. Pedroia will foul that one. Up in the air, Wieters, and he's got it. So good work by Oliver Drake. That'll hold the runners where they are at second and third as Pedroia. No luck getting him in so far today.
A little dangerously up in the zone, but nice job there. Nice recovery. Nice split finger. And Pedroia to pop up to Matt Wieters. See the movement though. That is really the key. That ball is boring in on the hands of Pedroia. Nice play by Matt Wieters.
So Drake with a chance to get out of it. Bogarts 0 for 3 in the game after a 3 for 4 in the opener last night. 2 on, 2 down. Bogarts 4th with runners in scoring position in the league at 354. He and Miguel Cabrera battling for the batting title in the American League. 334. Cabrera started today. 325. Bogarts started. 1-0 delivery to him. That'll be inside. Leaned him away. And the count goes to 2-0. Miguel Gonzalez is going to be coming back for the Orioles. Like Showalter said, all has gone well. He will start on Tuesday at Camden Yards against the Jays. So Miguel will be back in the rotation.
That's great news for Miguel. Obviously for the Orioles as well. You want your players to finish up the season healthy. Miguel will have the season that he had hoped for. Kind of an up and down ride, battling through some injuries. See Ryan Mattis joining Jorge Rondon.
2-0 count, 2 down. Fouled off outside of third base. There's Adam Jones chatting as always.
Clank that one. Get off the hand. Come on, Adam. You see Wayne Kirby saying, "What are you doing, man? You belong out in center field. That's where you make those plays."
No one would agree more than Adam on that. And probably will be there tomorrow. 2-1 delivery on the way to him, and that's going to go to third, right under the glove of Machado. 2 runs will score. A ball that's got to be caught, and it wasn't. And that's a big hit. A 4-0 lead.
You kind of expect every ball that's hit down that third base way be gloved by Manny Machado. It scoots underneath. See if Manny gets ready. A lot of foot movement and a couple stutter steps. And the glove does not get down. Actually kind of hooks in between the glove and his left foot. And 2 runs score on that one. Miscue by Machado. Play we've seen him make 99% of the time.
So it is an error allowing the 2 runs to score, and for Oliver Drake that means he ends up coming out of the ball game. So Drake out, and a pretty unhappy manager standing on the mound right now. The Red Sox have a 4-0 lead. E5.
Time working it in the low 90s. Breaking ball, the slow curve, and the slider, and the straight change 14% of the time. 3 earned run average. Picked up a win this season. 56 punch outs, 20 walks in his 48 innings of work. The opponents had 209 overall average. Lefties just 182 though. Strong year for Brian Mattis. Did a little bit better in this situation though. 26 of 41. Inherited runners stranded.
So that'll bring up Travis Shaw. Bogart's on at first base, reaching on the 2-run error. Shaw's 0 for 3 in the game, 0 for 7 in the 2 games. Orioles with the shift on in the infield, and Brian Mattis with the pitch up and into him. A tough outing for Drake. Should have been out of the inning with no runs scored. They will be on earned runs here in the 7th inning. Mattis with the 0-1 pitch, and that will come inside for a ball. And Brian looking to get that out against the left-hander Shaw. Shaw's gone 1 for 3 off Brian, a home run. And that one's going to be down low. 2 ball, 1 strike count. Mattis this year against the Red Sox. This will be his 8th outing. 4 runs, 3 hits, 5 2/3 innings. Runner off first, pitch popped up. Major league pop up. Manny Machado. Ball being blown towards third. He will put it away. So a couple of runs in. They are both unearned on a hit and an error, and 1 left on. as expected. We're seeing the bullpen.
Yeah, back to this Red Sox pen. Alexia Gondo now coming out. Fastball 67% of the time. Still the good heater from the veteran right-hander. 92 to 96. Has a slider changeup to go along with it. 4.21 earned run average with a couple wins in 62 innings of work. 50 punch-outs. 26 walks, though, so he can lose command in a hurry. Opponent's hitting 246 overall. Lefty's just 211. Fly ball pitcher, 58% of his outs in the air, and he's given up 12 long balls.
It's a lot of home runs. He threw a scoreless inning his last outing Thursday against Tampa Bay. He actually leads the Red Sox in relief innings with those 62. Reimold, top of the order. He's drawn 2 walks in the game, and he has flied out. Gondo's delivery to him, swing and a miss, and a breaking ball down and away. Flaherty and Machado due up. Orioles bat, 8th inning, down 4-0. They've had only 3 hits. The last one came in the 5th inning, a base hit by Hardy. The other 2 came together in the 2nd. Scope a single, Parra a double, and they were stranded in scoring position. Not happy faces.
No.
That'll be down to third base. Reimold with real good speed. Running throw, Holt. Got him. Mercy. Holt is having a day at third.
Yeah, quite a play right there. You have to be aware of who's up, the speed that they possess. Brock Holt, he has a great internal clock here. Slow roller, knowing the speed of Reimold. A one-time throw on the money to Shaw. Get the first out for the Sox.
Well, you look ahead to next season for Boston. If they can secure some decent pitching, their position players,
yeah,
pretty darn good.
Yeah, they have some real good young depth.
Ryan Flaherty is 0 for 3 in the game. Gondo's delivery to him and a swing and a miss. Orioles will conclude the road trip tomorrow. They are 5-3 in the trip right now. Here's the 0-1 delivery. Another one buried in even more that time and kept it down. 0-2 count.
He doesn't typically go to that changeup, but a couple to Ryan Flaherty to get ahead.
Lights taking effect here. Twilight time. Flaherty will take it away. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Barnes worked a couple of innings. 1 walk and 1 strikeout. One, 2. Flaherty off home plate. Another Baltimore chop. This time Bogart's running throw. Not going to get him. So Ryan Flaherty gets the infield single with 1 away here in the 8th inning.
Tester play right there. Bogart's had to come a long way for that Baltimore up.
And that's how important those unearned runs were. Instead of bringing the potential tying run to the plate, you're down 4-0. Manny Machado 0 for 2 and a walk, 0 for 6 in the 2 games. A couple of home runs, 6 RBIs against Boston this year. Machado will take a fastball that's in there for a strike. Machado 1 for 4 lifetime off this right-hander. Runner off first in the dirt. Swihart makes the stop. Flaherty stays at first base. Tommy Lane. No Ramirez. Rendon's ready to go. One ball, 1 strike delivery. Souvenir back. He's looking at the 4 games with Toronto coming in. Marco Estrada, Marcus Stroman, R.A. Dickey, David Price.
And they've all Stroman, the only one that we haven't seen this year because been injured. But all have had very good years.
Yep. That will be their post-game tune-up in those games against the Orioles. 2 ball, 2 strike count, 1 down. Postseason tune-ups. Flaherty, the runner at first base. Couple close, but not quite. Alexei Ogando. And he goes full. 3-2, only 1 out. Chris Davis waiting on deck. Orioles needing base runners.
Yeah. Be nice man to get on base somehow here.
And that will be down low. So Ogando surrenders the walk. And that's what the Orioles needed. 2 on and 1 away here in the 8th inning for Chris Davis. And that will be it for Alexei Ogando. So in this game, a bullpen matchup being played by the Red Sox after starting Craig Breslow from the bullpen. Lovallo comes on and will make the change here. Davis will come up with 2 on base, 4-0 Boston.
First start in the major leagues after 522 relief appearances, and he did an outstanding job. 4 innings, 55 pitches, which is the most he's thrown in a long time. Heath Embry, Matt Barnes, couple innings, and Alexei Ogando, 1/3 of an inning. And now Tommy Lane, lefty-lefty matchup here as he faces Chris Davis. Fastball 66% of the time. Low 80s or high 80s, low 90s with that fastball. Has a slider and a split finger, 4.14 earned run average. A couple wins out of the Red Sox pen. Pitched pretty much the second half of the season for the Red Sox. 241 overall batting average.
So Lane will go to work with 2 on against Chris Davis. Lane brought in for the matchup. Left-handers only 153 against him, and he has not given up a home run to a left-hander this year. Chris Davis with 2 on and 1 out. Infield double play depth. And Davis way out in front of the 83-mile-an-hour pitch.
Take a look at the most extra base hits this season. Josh Donaldson, probably the American League MVP. Mike Trout right behind him. But there's Chris Davis with 71. Of course, the 43 homers, 28 doubles for Chris Davis. Orioles could use one of those knocks.
And a swing and a miss on a pitch down and away out of the strike zone. Well located by Lane. 30 out of 39. Stranded. Chris is 1 for 5 off this left-hander. Flaherty at second base, a single. Manny Machado at first base with a walk. Both the responsibility of Ogando. Davis will foul that one back. Holds the count at a ball and 2 strikes.
You can see by Tommy Lane's delivery, there's some funkiness there. So obviously deception, but he also changes the arm angles, much like we saw Rich Hill in last night's ball game. He'll drop down a little bit more and bring the fastball arm slot up on occasion, drop down on his breaking ball as well.
1-2. Orioles with a chance to get back in this ball game, down 4-0. And Davis will take the pitch for a ball. 2 ball, 2 strike count. Rendon's been throwing for an hour and a half. Gibbons getting up to join him. One of them will be coming in. Mattis came on, got the out asked of him on Shaw. Davis will pop that one up. Third base. Wind blowing it in and over. Infield fly rule called ultimately. Holt will make the catch anyway, and there are 2 down. That'll bring up Steve Pearce, 0 for 2 and a walk. Take a look for the Orioles. Here's what they have still on the bench.
Yeah, David Lowe obviously just recalled with Adam Jones on the shelf here last 4 games. Clevenger, Alvarez on there, Yanish, Walker, Joseph, Blake, Brady. So Buck Showalter, he can do some matching up himself against this Red Sox pen.
Well, he's going to get a chance apparently, as Lane will work to only 1 batter and get the out needed. 2 down, and Pearce will be coming up.
Called up here in September. 3rd stint with the Red Sox this season. Fastball 57% of the time. Not overpowering, 87 to 91 with the heater. Has a slider and a changeup. 13 games for the Sox. This will be his 14th. 4.50 earned run average. 13 punch outs and the 6 walks. He's hitting 245. Lefty's just 200. Fly ball pitcher. 61% of his outs in the air, but has some deception. A funky presentation. You see 73% of his runners stranded.
Ramirez out of Los Angeles. 2 on, 2 down. Pearce will take the pitch away for a ball. Ramirez working in just his 4th professional season. Selected in the 4th round, June 2011. 1-0 count. Pearce takes that one, and it's down low. So the Red Sox pitchers and opening this ball game up here in the 8th inning. Flaherty with a base hit, then the walk to Manny Machado, and now Pearce with a 2-0 count. Orioles trying to get that potential tying run to the plate. There are 2 outs. That one in the air to center field. Bradley is there, and that will do it here in the 8th inning. No runs, 1 hit, no errors, and 2 are left on base. A 4-0 Boston lead. Looking to win the division. They have sold out 18 of the last 19 at home, 46,000 plus each of those games. Their tickets for the division series sold out Thursday in under 2 hours. And they now have 89 wins for the first time since 1993, when they picked up 95 on the year.
Take a look at Jorge Rondon. His pitch arsenal this season, the fastball 67% of the time. And it's a good firm one, too. Mid-90s with the heater. Hard slider 26% of the time. And the change 7%. Run average not quite there, though. 10.80. He had great numbers in AAA, but getting roughed up a little bit here at the major league level in his 13 1/3 innings of work.
The moon, which has been shining brightly the last few nights on the East Coast, and there it is on its way out tonight. Rusney Castillo will be leading it off. Double and a run scored 6th inning. He has grounded out twice. He'll go after it and foul it off. Down to one knee on that one. Get a piece of himself on that foul ball.
Yeah, looks like the front calf. He's got the pad down there on the ankle area. Oh, yeah, it's all over that front calf.
Right where the pad wasn't. Castillo with the 0-1 count. 263, 5 home runs on the year. He'll put that one in the air down the line right field. That's going to be a problem. That'll fall in for a base hit. He'll make the turn. The Orioles make sure they've got second covered. Scope will get the ball back in. Castillo's 2 for 4 with a leadoff single here in the bottom half of the 8th inning.
Fastball riding in on the hands, but he gets it out there. Jam shot over the head of Steve Fierce. Jonathan Scope giving chase. Find some grass. Base hit. Second of the game for Castillo.
Red Sox now with 7 hits in the game. Holt, who's played as fine an all-around ball game as anybody here on this Saturday. Base hit, 6th inning, stole a base, had an RBI, got a walk in the 5th inning, scored. 1 for 2 officially at the plate in the ball game. The Orioles set at double play depth. Machado's got a guard against a bunt, even though he's moved over towards short. And the pitch will be in the outside corner for a strike to Holt. And he's checking down at third with Castillo with good speed on at first base.
Maybe slowed up a little bit after fouling the ball off the calf.
Pitch on the way, runner not going. Underneath the glove of Pierce. Making the turn, Castillo. He'll go to third. Going to second is Holt. And he is safe. Hardy covering. His speed when he gets going is really amazing. There is no way a batter should be able to get to second base on that ball, but it's only because of his speed that he did.
Yeah, he has incredible speed, but he cuts the corners on the bases. That's what helps. A lot of times there are fast guys, but they round the bag and they don't make a tight line. Not Holt. As you see at first, look at how tight he is to the baseline. And he is right there. Many times hitters or base runners will lose extra steps if they take that turn too wide. Holt showing how to do it the right way. Castillo over at third base. See how close the play is here. Nice slide. Maybe putting the tag down, but just a little too late.
So an RBI chance for Josh Rutledge. Infield's got to move in again. Rutledge has an RBI single. Rondon's pitch will be in there for a strike. Red Sox threatening to add more. They called an error on Pierce on that play. So underneath the glove, the Orioles' second error of the ball game. 0-1 pitch and a check swing on a pitch that is inside. And this one would just about put the ball game away if he can get a base hit and 2 more runs scored. Rondon 2 on, inside again, and a 2-ball 1-strike count. Red Sox are 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position today, increasing their chances as the ball game's moved along. Orioles have an 0 for 4. Rutledge waiting on it, chased one. 2-ball 2-strike count.
Nice hard slider right there from Rondon after a couple fastballs inside, opens up that outside corner.
Brian Mattis worked a third of an inning, got an out. Drake 2/3 of an inning, 2 runs, both unearned. Had a walk, a strikeout, and a hit. 2-2 delivery on the way. Little chopper runner coming. Machado's got to go to first. Will get the out. It'll be an RBI. Second of the ball game for Rutledge. Castillo scores, and it's a 5-0 lead.
Going on contact there. Nice call for the Red Sox as they extend the lead 5-0. It's a little chopper here, right on contact. Castillo with a good read. And running no chance for Machado, even with the strong arm, because of the lead there by Castillo.
Still only 1 down. Infield will stay drawn in. Runner at third base. Swihart a base hit, a walk, and a strikeout. He has scored a run. Down the line, another slicer. This one's going to be foul. We have seen in just the first 2 games of the series, Red Sox hitters so many times trying to slice the ball down the left field line. These left-handers trying to take advantage of that left field corner. Get one down there, you got a double.
Yeah.
Hit one off the wall, you got a single.
A lot of lefties just come in here and brought to the Red Sox because of their ability to go the other way, and we're just key on that green monster, Wade Boggs. He lived off that wall.
Wade told me he spent a whole winter after coming to the Red Sox working on his swing to be able to hit the ball off the monster. He said he had to readjust his complete approach at the plate. And boy, did he ever do it successfully. 1-ball 2-strike count. Swihart looking to get Holt in from third base. He reached on the error. Rondon's delivery to him, and a swing and a miss. Put that one up in the strike zone at 95 and got him.
Good heater there. Best fastball from Rondon. Typically works in the mid-90s, but started this inning out throwing in 90 miles an hour here. 95. Aimed on the outside corner.
Strikeout number 1 for Rondon. Bradley with 2 down. Infield backs up. Jackie Bradley Jr. He facing the golden sombrero, setting off stage. 3 Ks in the ball game. 2 swinging, 1 called. One-oh count, 2 away. Down to first and foul. Orioles will have Weeder, Scope, and Parra due up in the top of the 9th inning. 5-7-0 for the Red Sox. 0-4-2 for the Orioles. And looks like they'll be facing Robbie Ross. One delivery. Off the fist, the other way foul. Number of the fans here, and it was about a full house for this ball game. Had enough of the chill and have headed out.
Nice to see the fans coming out and seeing some of the young Red Sox. A very disappointing year, obviously, for Red Sox Nation. Good young talent finishing the season strong.
Rondon will miss up high with it. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Red Sox scored him from the 5th inning on. 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th, another one here in the 8th inning. 2-2 delivery on the way. Bradley will take it. It's down low. In the dirt. 3 ball, 2 strike count. The Orioles, if they do not come back to win this game, they will be only 2 games up in the loss column to Boston. And battle not to be in last place. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Bradley takes it and he's on. Let's take a look at our Lexus of Towson drive of the game.
After Wei Chen issued his first walk of the game in the 5th, Rutledge comes up, hammers a double down the left field line, bounces back. Flaherty recovering to get the ball, but holds speed, wins this race. The Red Sox get on the board first. Rutledge double.
Drive of the game brought to you by Lexus of Towson, the area's #1 volume Lexus dealer, 5 years running. See why at lexusoftowson.com. First and third now with 2 outs. Here's Mookie Betts. Betts double in the 7th inning scored. His walk, struck out, fly down. Goes after one down the line, right field again. Power, the long run over near the wall. It's a fair ball, and it's a ground rule double. It bounces up into the seats. So Betts comes through again. His 2nd hit of the ball game. He will pick up an RBI. The fact it's a ground rule double saves another run.
Puts this one in just the right spot. Or a long way to run, and then let's put the brakes on with the slide over. Becomes a little bit short. That ball kicks up into the stands.
Back to third, young man.
Got to go back, man. Ground rule double.
So 2 runs in here in the 8th inning, and 2 more in scoring position. Dustin Pedroia's bases loaded 5th inning, didn't get a hit. 7th inning came up 2 in scoring position and popped out. So Dustin has left 6 on base in the ball game. 1-0 count, 2 down. Pedroia will take the pitch, and that's going to be down low. Rondon struggling here to get final out here in the 8th inning, not helped by an error charged on Pierce on that ball that went through Holt, the 2nd batter, who has come around to score. Rondon 2-0, 2 down. Pedroia on a check swing. Did he go? Nope. And they announced attendance is a sellout today, 36,316. And it looked fair, not just tickets sold, but they were here. 3-0 delivery on the way, stepped out, walked him. Rondon has walked 2. And the bases are loaded for Bogaerts. We're going to get another pitching change. Boy, these bullpens have been the busiest places in this game. Steve Johnson is ready to go. He'll come on here in the 8th inning with the bases loaded and the 8th Red Sox batter to hit. And that will be Bogaerts coming up with 2 down. MLB.com at bat, #1 app for live baseball. You get highlights, replay reviews, scores, StatCast, and more. MLB.com at bat app now.
Well, the Orioles have to go back out to the bullpen. Rondon just couldn't get it done. So Steve Johnson in here to try to clean this inning up. Fastball 85% of the time when he's on. It's an invisible fastball. Breaking ball as well, and change. A 9 earned run average right now. But Steve Johnson doing a great second half in AAA. Earned his call up here to the big leagues. Impressive numbers down there. Finished the year with a 2.30 earned run average.
Bases are loaded, 2 away. Bogarts at the plate. Looking for his first hit. Reached on an error. Big error his last time up. Couple of unearned runs, 7th inning. He is 0 for 4 in the ball game, 3 for 8 in the series. Sacks full, 2 away. Johnson's pitch to him, and that'll be there for a strike. 6-0 lead with 2 more runs in here in the 8th inning. Johnson, the 1-1 delivery on the way. That'll catch the inside corner. Bogarts didn't think so. And the count goes to 1 ball, 2 strikes. Here are the base runners. They've picked it up in every which way but loose. Bradley a walk. Betts has had the double. Pedroia a walk. One, 2 count. Delivery to him. Bogarts will pop it back. Wieters. And that'll be in the seats. One and 2.
Long day back there for Matt Wieters. Number of pitchers used after Wei-Yin Chen's outing. So Wieters coming out of the gate. Long way to go here at Fenway Park.
Bogarts. 1 ball, 2 strike count. Delivery to him. Off speed down to third, and another error on Manny Machado. 2 runs have scored. A hellish finish in this ball game for the Orioles. Last 2 times Bogarts has hit, Machado's let a ball go right under his glove.
Pretty routine play here for Manny, but you see the glove position. Something that Manny has been so good at is keeping his head behind the baseball. There the glove is actually behind him. Manny just a little careless on that one as he lets another one scoot through.
Wow. It is an 8-0 game. Runners on at first and second. Travis Shaw is the number 9 batter in the inning. Pitch will be taken up high for a ball. Runs charged to Rondon. We'll have to wait till the inning's done to see what the earned unearned are going to be. And for Buck Showalter, this is the kind of game that will drive him crazy. Pitch is going to be fouled off Wieters.
Well, it's really frustrating because the Orioles really played themselves right back into contention after getting so hot against the Nationals, sweeping the Nationals, and they wanted to ride a nice wave of momentum. They led up yesterday after Rich Hill pitched a career game shutout, and today thought they might bounce back with a little more fire, but not a lot going on right now. Orioles offense shut down, and defensively considered one of the best defensive teams in baseball. Let down today with 3 errors on the board.
Manny Machado now has got 20 on the year with 2 in this game. And a swing and a miss. So the inning is finally over, but 4 runs are added. And the Red Sox, with the help of errors, now have an 8-0 lead. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. And by PNC for the Achiever in you. Started by the light of the sun, we finish by the light of the moon. Here at Fenway Park in Boston, where the Red Sox have the 8-0 lead, and that moon is full and bright on this Saturday night.
And the Red Sox going to the pen again. Jonathan Rowe made his debut against the Orioles in late June, but sent back down and has been up and down a couple of times. 9.45 earned run average, only 6 2/3 innings of work, 4 punch outs, a couple of walks. Rowe is getting up to 13 hits, so very hittable here. The Orioles would like to put some runs on the board, get this offense going a little bit.
All 4 runs in the 8th inning are unearned runs. Ball's a base hit into right field. So Matt Wieters will deliver a single leading off the top of the 9th inning. The Orioles trying to at least get rid of the goose egg. Right now in danger of being shut out in consecutive games. That has happened this year. They were shut out July 2 and 3. Texas on the 2nd, and then at Chicago on the 3rd. Back-to-back shutouts pitched against the Orioles. Rowe's pitch is in there for a strike. Jonathan Schoop a single. He is 1 for 3 in the ballgame. So Rondon's line at 2/3 of an inning, 4 runs, none earned, 2 hits, 2 walks, and a strikeout. Steve Johnson coming on to get the out. A strikeout to end that 8th inning. Rowe's pitch will be put up in the air again towards that wall left center. Again, the wind will knock it down. Castillo's there to put it away, and Jonathan Schoop is retired. 1 out in the 9th inning.
Get the ball elevated to left field today. It kind of hangs up. Line drives are cut through the wind and hitting some tin. Unfortunately, it's only been the Red Sox that have been able to make the noise.
The Orioles have gone 19 innings without a run. This would be the 20th if they don't score here. One down. Parra will foul that one back. One count, 1 away. Infield a double play depth. Wieters not being held at first base. Parra down to first and foul. The Orioles have surrendered 6 unearned runs in this game. That is a new high this season. Twice they had surrendered 5 unearned runs. Both times it happened to be against the Red Sox. So 2 times 5 unearned runs. Now 6 unearned runs. All against Boston this year.
Wasn't that last time a Wei and Chen start as well?
Yep. That is handled. Nice play by Holt. Holt makes the catch by the Orioles dugout.
Now familiar with Fenway Park, so knows where the dugout is. Made one look about 30 feet ahead of the dugout. Didn't look down again. Great concentration on that ball. Up with the second out.
Last time the Orioles gave up 6 unearned runs, you got to go back to 2012, July 16 against the Twins. Pitch will be taken up high for a ball. 2 down. Hardy. And that pitch is going to be taken for a strike. So for Manny Machado, big 2 errors in the ball game, and for the Orioles, errors that have been very costly. Ball is knocked down. Get the out at second. Bogarts with a fine play to Rutledge for the fielder's choice. And the Orioles have been shut out consecutive ball games.
Take a look at this young shortstop. Not only can he hit, And some great defense as well. Second highest fielding percentage behind J.J. Hardy.
So Embry was the second pitcher to work in the ball game where they used all relievers. He's going to get the win in the game. He's going to be 2-0. Wei-Yin Chen will take the loss. He is 10-8. The Orioles have been shut out in consecutive games.